Hello and welcome to another episode of Geared Toward Gear. My name is Sean and I'm so glad you're here. Today we're taking a look at the Gerber Fastball. This is a knife that I bought a number of weeks ago and I'm really enjoying, and I'd like to share it with you, talk a little bit about it, show you a few other knives that I think compare to it, and also some competitive options where you could probably get similar performance, maybe for a little less money, but I do like the knife, so let's get into it. It ships in a box that I find is grossly oversized for the knife. I would have much rather seen this come in like, what you typically see with like a CRKT or a Kershaw. Just a simple cardboard box would have been just fine. This thing is quite large considering how small the knife is. As you can see, it's the Gerber Fastball S30V steel, and this is the green version. So this slides out here. You're left with this cardboard box, which you open. And inside, once you open this, you kind of slide out this inner part here, and there's your knife. And the way these came packaged actually is that the knife itself had the pocket clip through this piece of the cardboard, and there were two zip ties holding it in place. Like I kept one, two like legit zip ties holding the knife wrapped around it, which I thought was just totally excessive and unnecessary, but I got it out and it's fine. So packaging, I'd give a C minus, just because it was a little difficult and I think unnecessary, but that's just packaging. Most of us don't really care about that. We're here to see the knife. So get some of that cardboard dust out of the way, and let's talk about the Gerber Fastball. So this hit the market not too long ago, and it kind of took it by storm. A lot of people were really excited about this for a couple reasons. One, it's Gerber, right? Gerber, for a lot of us, is a brand that's near and dear to our hearts, that we've owned knives from for years. I mean, I probably got my first Gerber 20 plus years ago, maybe 25 years ago. So it's a brand that's synonymous with the knife community. Having said that, I think they kind of went off, they just kind of didn't follow or keep up with other innovations in the knife industry. And so for a while, I think they were kind of, they just weren't putting out great quality stuff. It was all overseas produced. The designs weren't very exciting, but they've started to rectify that in the recent past. So this is a made in the USA knife, which I think is one of the first things that I'd like to point out. As you can see here, made in the USA, Portland, Oregon. So really cool that it is made in the USA. I really dig that. The price tag on this is $100, $99.99. That's what you'll pay on Amazon.com or on Blade HQ or any other website. I have not seen them for more than $100, unless it's a secondhand, eBay markup type thing. But $100 is typically what you'll pay for this. So let's talk specs briefly, and then I'll give you some of my thoughts. So the overall length is 7.1 inches. The blade length is 3 inches, which is perfect for me. The handle length is 4 inches, and it weighs 2.8 ounces. The handles are made of aluminum, and they're not super smooth. There's actually some texture to them, which I like quite a bit. So that's the basic specs as far as size. The blade steel is CPM S30V, which we'll see right there, S30V. So phenomenal steel, big fan of S30V. And the finish on the blade, as you can see here, is a stonewash finish. And it's a really well done stonewash. It's not too aggressive. I like it quite a bit. So I think they executed the blade finish quite nicely. So that is the blade steel and the blade finish. The blade shape, as you can see, is a Wharncliffe style, which I like quite a bit. You got a little bit of swedge up here at the top. I just like Wharncliffes. Drop point is my favorite blade shape in general, but sheep's foot and Wharncliffes are kind of tied for number 2 for me. So a blade shape such as this for EDC, I really, really like. So digging the blade shape, the blade steel, and the blade finish. And it's a perfect length for me as well. what I'd like to do real quick before we move any further is compare this to a couple other knives. And as soon as this came out, a lot of people were talking on social media about this being a ripoff of the Kershaw Leek. So let's take a Kershaw Leek and compare them, just briefly. So as you can see from the handle shape, and let me maybe hold them this way, the handle shape is quite different. Even the blade shape is different. The overall size and dimensions are different. I can see why you would, there's certainly a resemblance, but it's not in my opinion, by any means a ripoff of the Kershaw Leek. Some similarities, certainly, with the basic blade shape being kind of a Wharncliffe style. They both have aluminum handles, but the design is different. So I do not see this as a Leek ripoff in any way, shape, or form. Having said that, there's another Kershaw that I think is much more similar to the Fastball, and that is the Kershaw Dividend. Both of these are assisted, both the Kershaws. So if we look at the Dividend here, you'll see a lot more similarity, I think, in the overall design and shape. The blade shapes are very similar. The handle shape is definitely different. You've got kind of this down sweep on the Dividend that you don't have on the Fastball. So again, a different design, but much more similar to the Dividend. It's almost like if the Dividend and the Leek had a baby, it would be the Gerber Fastball. So that's my thoughts on kind of the commentary that I've heard a lot about as far as this being a ripoff of a design. Are there similarities? Yes. Are there similarities in a lot of knife designs from a lot of different manufacturers? Yes. There's only so many shapes that exist in the world, and so inevitably there's going to be some similarities, and in my opinion, this is not a ripoff. So that's my mileage. Yours might vary. So having said that, this is a manual opener, which I love. The two Kershaws, which I just showed you, which I do like, are assisted, which is not my preference. This is a manual flipper, and it has a really, really strong detent. And that's something I've heard as both a complaint and a positive on this knife, depending on who you ask. For me, I love it. So let me show you an example of a knife that has a much weaker detent. So this is the Boker Plus Urban Trapper. So this is a very kind of weak detent. So with very little effort, just watch the speed at which this deploys. Okay? I mean, you can almost follow the blade with your eye. Now, I can make it deploy faster if I apply more pressure, but with very kind of light pressure, it deploys relatively slow because there's not that strong detent that's really wanting to hold that blade closed and prevent you from opening it. Compare that now to the Gerber Fastball that has a very strong detent. See how fast that is? So let's compare that to an assisted knife. So let me see if I can do this at the same time with two hands. So I'll do the Fastball in my right hand, and because this is assisted, I can do this in my left hand. So I don't know how this will come out, but let's compare the speed of the two, the Fastball and the Dividend from Kershaw. To me, that felt and sounded pretty much identical. So although the Fastball is a manual opener, it has the speed of an assisted knife because there's a very strong detent. And if I break that detent, you can actually hear the detent break. So let me get this in close, and as I pull the blade out, you'll hear it click. That's the detent, which is up in this area, being surpassed. When it's being closed, you'll see it and hear it suck in. Okay, so that's that detent ball seating itself into the detent itself. So that is a very strong detent, and so you have to use a little bit more effort to overcome that, but the result is a very, very fast, authoritative deployment, which I really like. So that's my thoughts on the detent. Again, it's one of those things that people either love or hate. I particularly love it on this knife. The pocket clip is not a deep ride, which I'm totally fine with. It's a good design. It carries well. It's not overly obtrusive like we see on some knives. There was one that we talked about recently, and I can't remember, that had a really, a pocket clip that kind of came out quite far that I didn't love. But this pocket clip I like, And it's good for left-handed persons because it's swappable for tip up and tip down for right-handed carry. And for left-handed carry, you can swap the pocket clip for tip up carry. So 3-position pocket clip. Being a flipper again, it's going to make it ambidextrous, so a good option for left-handed users. And now that I say that, I feel like the last few knives that I've reviewed have been good left-handed options. So that's a good thing because we don't want to forget about the lefties. It does have a stainless steel liner on one side, and that's the liner lock itself. The lockup is great. It is probably at about 40% or so, and it locks up really strong, at least on the one that I have here. Very strong lockup. The centering on my example is dead center. Totally good with the centering on that. And I haven't really heard any complaints of them not being centered properly, so that's good. What else? Ergonomics. It's a comfortable knife. For my use, and as I've mentioned in previous videos, I'm not a hard user necessarily. I'm doing basic EDC tasks around the house, basic, food prep, cutting up an apple, opening boxes. So for me, the ergonomics for the way I use knives is just fine. It's perfectly comfortable. The only complaint that I would have with the ergos is that if I really bear down on this, and you can see my fingers turning white. If I really bear down on this, the kind of meat of my fingers kind of digs into the opening where the blade would sit, and kind of pinches a little bit. So that's not super comfortable. So if I was really bearing down on this thing, there's definitely a hot spot that I get kind of right in this area across my fingers. You can probably see where my fingers were kind of pinched in that slot there. But that's never how I'm going to grip this knife. So for me, something to take note of, if you're the type that really has to bear down and really hard use your knives, you may pinch in that slot there. Otherwise, the ergonomics for me are just fine. I don't think a knife of this size and this weight for EDC needs any jimping. There is some texturing on the liner lock itself to make that a little easier and more comfortable to disengage, which it's quite easy to disengage. You do have to overcome that detent even on the disengagement. So I just overcame the liner lock, but the blade, I'm pushing on it, still doesn't want to close. So it takes a little effort to close it, but it's still very quick and easy to open and close. So I do like that. So let's talk about competitive options. So as I mentioned, this is a $100 knife. I compared this, or used it rather, as a competitive option in my Benchmade bug out video as something that is, I think, equal or greater in performance, design, materials, etc. to the bug out, and is $20 cheaper. But there's another knife that you can get that's actually $20 cheaper than this that I think is a very competitive option. And what that is this knife, the Kershaw Dividend, in M390 steel. So this Kershaw Dividend is in 420 high carbon steel, and it costs like $30, I think. This particular color is exclusive to Walmart, I believe. And I did swap out a deep carry clip from Kershaw, but you can get a Kershaw Dividend, which is very similar in dimensions and weight and overall materials. You can get this knife in M390 steel, which is a phenomenal steel, for $79.99, if you can find one. For a long time, they were widely available on Blade HQ. They're currently sold out, but there is an M390 version of the Kershaw Dividend, and it costs $79.99, so $20 cheaper for an excellent steel and essentially the same materials. And one thing to note too with the Dividend, as you can see by this American flag here, also USA made. So if you want a assisted opening knife from Kershaw that's USA made in a great steel, the M390 version of the Dividend could be a great competitive option against the Gerber Fastball. So something to take note of there if you're looking for a decent EDC knife with a phenomenal steel at a good price. The price point on this, I think, is fair. If it was, $95 or $90, I think that would be better. But at the end of the day, it's made in the USA, so that's always going to carry a premium because we're paying American laborers, right? We're paying them a much better wage than they pay overseas. So there's always going to be a premium on USA made, and the materials are great. S30V is not a cheap steel, and it's just a good design. So I was perfectly fine spending $100 on this, which I did. There's been a couple of videos recently, I think maybe one flashlight video that comes to mind where I was given the flashlight by the company. Unless I say otherwise, I buy everything that I talk about on this channel. If I didn't purchase it myself, I will tell you. If it was a gift or if the company provided it for whatever reason, I will tell you. But otherwise, if I don't say anything, I paid for it with my money. And I was perfectly happy spending $100 on this knife. It's gotten a lot of use, and I really like it quite a bit. We'll do a quick cut test, and then we'll call it a day. So here's some kind of cardstock. It's a little thicker, and we can get some decent little kind of curly cues if I can get close up enough on the camera here, which may be hard to do. We can get some little curly cues going. You know, so it's plenty sharp. It's S30V. It's going to hold an edge for a while. So that's kind of how it's going through cardstock. Now, when I bring in just basic printer paper, and this is super thin, very inexpensive store brand printer paper, it's not quite as crisp of a cutter. It still cuts just fine, but what I will do with this knife that I have not done yet is I will take this to the strop, and I may even take it to one of my higher grit rods just to kind of refine the edge a little bit. But out of the box, it could be better. It's not perfect, but it's certainly serviceable. So no major complaints with the sharpness out of the box. So that is the USA made Gerber Fastball, as I get the trash out of the way. And those are my thoughts. I think it's a great knife. I love that Gerber is being a little more innovative, trying to kind of catch up with some other companies and offer more premium blade steels and designs that people can get excited about. So for someone like me who's been a Gerber fan for 20, 25 years, this is exciting for me. That's why I was really interested in this knife when I heard about it and why I decided to spend my hard-earned money on it. So that's my thoughts on the Gerber Fastball. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.